The emergency lights in the Galactic Council chamber pulsed with an ominous red glow. 500 representatives from across the galaxy sat in unusual silence, their voices stolen by the horror displayed on the massive holographic screen before them. Captain James Stone of the Earth Deep Space Fleet stood at attention, his weathered face illuminated by the projection. His small human frame seemed impossibly tiny among the towering aliens, but his voice carried clearly through the chamber. The research station was completely dark when we arrived, he reported, his hands clasped behind his back. At first, we thought it was a simple power failure, but then we saw this. The hologram showed footage from his ship's external cameras. The research station floated in space like a broken toy, surrounded by what looked like black ink in space. The darkness moved, rippled, and seemed to eat away at the very stars behind it. A tall being with crystalline skin rose from the council's high seats. "Impossible," it whispered, its voice cracking. "The Void Plague was sealed away 50,000 years ago. Our ancestors sacrificed entire star systems to contain it." Stone played the next segment of the recording. His rescue team, in their protective suits, had entered the station. The interior was coated with the same moving darkness. Where it touched metal, the metal crumbled into dust. Where it touched organic matter, it transformed it into more of itself. "We lost 2 good people in there," Stone said quietly. "The suits didn't help. Nothing we tried could stop it. The darkness just consumed everything." The council erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, some demanding immediate action, others calling for their worlds to isolate themselves. A few simply wept, their various anatomies shaking with fear. The council leader, an ancient being named Elder Light, raised all 4 of their arms. The chamber fell silent again. "Captain Stone," Elder Light spoke, their voice gentle but filled with authority. "You say this infection has already spread to 3 star systems." "Yes, Elder." Stone tapped his datapad, updating the hologram. 3 star systems glowed red on the galactic map. "The infection moves faster than our fastest ships. It corrupts both living things and machines." The research station's eye was changed. It kept repeating the same message over and over. "Play it," Elder Light commanded. Stone hesitated, then pressed another button. A distorted voice filled the chamber. "The Void hungers. The Void remembers. The Void returns. The Void hungers. The Void remembers." "Enough," shouted a reptilian counselor, their scales rattling with fear. "We must act now. The Ascended Ones among us surely have weapons that can stop this plague." The crystalline being shook its head. "Our weapons would only feed it. The records from the ancient war are clear. The more energy we throw at it, the stronger it becomes. That's why our ancestors had to sacrifice entire systems, creating artificial black holes to contain it." Stone cleared his throat. "With respect, counselors, we don't have time to argue. The Void is spreading exponentially. At its current rate, it will reach the Centauri colonies in 3 months. Earth in 6. Elder Light's form dimmed slightly, a sign of deep distress in their species. "Captain Stone speaks truth. We must unite, or we will all fall. The most advanced civilizations in our council will begin work immediately. The crystalline collective, the quantum minds, the living stars, all must share their knowledge." Stone stood straighter. "Earth stands ready to help, Elder." A dismissive laugh came from somewhere in the chamber. "What could humans possibly offer? Your species barely learned to lead your planet a century ago." Elder Light raised an arm for silence. "We welcome all help, Captain Stone, but perhaps your people should focus on preparing evacuation plans. If we cannot stop the Void Plague." They left the sentence unfinished. Stone nodded stiffly and left the chamber. As the doors closed behind him, he heard the council erupt into argument once again. He pulled out his communicator and sent a message to Earth Command. "It's worse than we thought. Get everyone working on this. We're going to prove them wrong." The red emergency lights continued to pulse, casting long shadows through the council chamber. Above them all, the hologram showed the creeping darkness, spreading through the stars like spilled ink on paper, consuming everything in its path. Dr. Marcus Walker wiped sweat from his forehead as he peered through the reinforced glass of the underwater research station. The volcanic vent below belched superheated water into the dark ocean depths. Most people would have found the sight frightening, but to Marcus, these extreme environments were where Earth's most fascinating creatures lived. Recording test number 47, he spoke into his recorder. The tardigrade's exposed to vent conditions are showing remarkable adaptation rates. Something about the pressure and heat is triggering accelerated evolution. His research partner, Dr. Anna Smith, monitored the readings from their latest experiment. She was quiet as always, but her eyes showed excitement. Marcus, look at these numbers. The specimens aren't just surviving, they're thriving. Marcus moved to her screen, squinting at the data. The microscopic tardigrades, also known as water bears, were doing something unprecedented. They weren't just resisting the extreme conditions, they were somehow converting the toxic vent chemicals into energy. Wait, Marcus said, his voice rising. Run that simulation again, but this time. A loud alarm cut him off. The station's screens flickered, then showed an emergency broadcast. Marcus felt his heart skip as he recognized Captain Stone's face. This is an Earth Command priority alert. Stone's recorded message played. The Void Plague threat has escalated. 4 star systems are now dark. The Galactic Council's attempts to contain the infection have failed. All Earth scientists are ordered to focus on finding a solution. Complete database access granted. Stone out. Anna pulled up the classified files. My God, she whispered. Look at these readings from the infected zones. The void. It's not just destroying things. It's changing the fundamental rules of physics and biology wherever it spreads. Marcus stared at the screen, then slowly turned to look at their experiment. Anna, he said carefully, doesn't this energy signature from the void look familiar? She followed his gaze to their tardigrade data. Then her eyes widened. The conversion pattern. It's almost exactly opposite to what our water bears are doing with the vent chemicals. Marcus's hands flew over the keyboard. These creatures evolved on Earth to survive almost anything. Space vacuum, extreme pressure, radiation. What if Earth's extreme environments created something that could naturally resist the void? They worked through the night, running simulation after simulation. Other research teams around the world were trying to build complex machines or energy shields to fight the void. But Marcus and Anna took a different approach, looking to Earth's smallest creatures for answers. 3 days later, Marcus stood nervously before the Earth Defense Committee. Through a holographic link, representatives from the Galactic Council watched with barely hidden skepticism. The void corrupts matter by changing its fundamental structure, Marcus explained, showing his data. But Earth's extremophiles, particularly tardigrades, have evolved natural defense mechanisms against similar types of corruption. We believe we can modify these organisms to create a biological countermeasure. Preposterous, a quantum mind representative buzzed. Your primitive Earth life cannot possibly stand against a force that devours stars. Admiral Gray, one of the few alien voices supporting Earth, raised his hand. Let him finish. We've tried everything else. Marcus took a deep breath. We've already succeeded in creating a strain that can survive brief exposure to void-corrupted materials. The tardigrades don't just resist the corruption. They slowly convert it back to normal matter. He played a video showing a small sample of void-touched metal. The black corruption covered its surface, but where they introduced their modified tardigrades, spots of normal metal began to reappear. The room burst into shocked murmurs. The council representatives spoke rapidly in their various languages. It's too small scale, someone objected. The void is consuming entire planets. This is just the beginning, Marcus insisted. We can scale up the process, combine it with other extremophile adaptations, Earth's life evolved to survive catastrophic extinctions, ice ages, and worse. We just need time to. Time is what we don't have. Admiral Gray interrupted gently. But perhaps this is exactly the kind of outside-the-box thinking we need. Continue your work, Dr. Walker. You have the Council's attention now. Marcus nodded, his heart racing. As he gathered his materials, he saw Anna giving him a quiet thumbs up from the back of the room. They had a chance now. A small one, but sometimes that's all humanity needed. Ambassador Thomas Reed stood before the Galactic Council for the third time that week. His formal diplomatic uniform felt tight around his neck, but he kept his posture straight. The massive chamber, usually filled with hundreds of representatives, now held less than 50. Many had fled back to their homeworlds as the void plague continued to spread. Honorable Council, he began, his voice steady. Earth requests immediate approval to begin large-scale testing of our biological countermeasure. Denied, the crystalline being said flatly. We cannot waste resources on unproven experiments while our greatest weapons fail. Reed took a deep breath. With respect, Council member, Dr. Walker's team has shown consistent success in their trials. The modified organisms can clean a few scraps of metal in a laboratory, interrupted another council member, their tentacles waving dismissively. The void has just consumed the Proxima system. Millions are dead or transformed, and you want us to pin our hopes on water bears. Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. Reed felt his chances slipping away. Then a familiar voice spoke from the shadows. I remember another time everyone dismissed humans as primitive, Admiral Gray said, stepping into the light. The elderly alien's silver skin had dulled with age, but his eyes remained sharp. It was during the great solar storm of 2157. The chamber grew quiet. Admiral Gray rarely spoke at council meetings anymore. Our predictive models had failed, he continued. The storm was going to hit every inhabited world in the sector. Our advanced shields would have collapsed under the radiation. But the humans, he turned to look at Reed. Tell them what your people did. Reed stood straighter. We built giant electromagnetic deflectors using old satellite parts and mining equipment. Simple technology, but it worked. Simple? Admiral Gray laughed softly. No. Adaptable. Creative. While we tried to overpower the storm, humans found a way to work with nature's forces, just like they're trying to do now. The crystalline being's surface rippled with irritation. This is different. The void is not a natural phenomenon. It defies the laws of physics themselves. Maybe that's why we keep failing, Reed argued. We're fighting it like it's a war. Dr. Walker is trying to understand it like it's a part of nature, a part we can work with and gradually change. He activated a hologram showing the latest test results. Look at the pattern. Every time we hit the void with energy weapons, it grows stronger. But the modified organisms don't fight it. They transform it, slowly but surely. A new alert flashed across the council's screens. The void had been detected at the edge of the Centauri system. Panic began to spread through the chamber. We don't have time for slow solutions, someone shouted. We don't have any other solutions at all, Admiral Gray countered. He turned to Elder Light, who had been watching silently. Give them a chance. What do we have to lose now? Elder Light's form pulsed thoughtfully. Ambassador Reed, if we approve this testing, how quickly can your team begin? Dr. Walker and Dr. Smith are already preparing, Reed replied. They just need access to a void-touched area and proper containment facilities. The mining station in the asteroid belt, Admiral Gray suggested. It's isolated, well-equipped, and if something goes wrong, Earth will be right in the path of any contamination, the crystalline being pointed out. Are your people willing to take that risk, Ambassador? Reed thought of his family back on Earth, of all the families counting on them to find a solution. We are. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before. We've learned that sometimes you have to risk everything to save everything. Elder Light rose slowly. The council will vote. But know this, Ambassador. If we approve this test and it fails, there may not be time to try anything else. The fate of galaxies could rest on your water bears. Reed nodded solemnly. Sometimes the smallest things make the biggest differences. That's another lesson humanity has learned. The vote began, and Reed held his breath. Beyond the council chamber windows, the stars seemed dimmer than usual, as if they too were waiting to see if humanity's gamble would pay off. The observation deck of Mining Station Delta 7 had never been so crowded. Dr. Marcus Walker watched through thick safety glass as robotic arms moved their first test container into position. Inside the container, a small sample of void-corrupted metal floated in a nutrient solution with their modified tardigrades. Test 1 starting, Dr. Anna Smith announced, her fingers moving across the control panel. Releasing organisms now. Everyone leaned forward. Representatives from the Galactic Council watched through secure video feeds. Admiral Gray stood next to Ambassador Reed, while Captain Stone had positioned himself near the emergency containment controls. The tardigrades made contact with the corrupted metal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything went wrong. The void-touched metal seemed to pulse. The darkness spread rapidly through the nutrient solution, consuming the tardigrades instantly. Warning alarms blared as the corruption began eating through the container's walls. Containment breach, Captain Stone shouted, initiating emergency protocols. Heavy blast doors slammed shut. The corrupted container was ejected into space and vaporized by the station's defense lasers before the void could spread further. The council representatives erupted in anger and fear. This is exactly what we warned about. The crystalline being thundered through the video feed. You've wasted precious time and resources. Marcus barely heard them. He was already reviewing the data with Anna, his face pale but determined. Look at this, he said, pointing to a reading. The void didn't just consume the tardigrades. It absorbed their biological material first, almost like it was hungry for it. Anna's eyes widened. The deep-sea bacteria, she whispered. Remember how they form communities to survive extreme pressure? Marcus nodded slowly. One organism alone isn't enough. We need a whole ecosystem. He turned to address the angry council. We need another test. But this time, we're going to try something different. Absolutely not. Several voices shouted at once. But Admiral Gray raised his hand. What do you propose, Doctor? Nature doesn't survive through individual species, Marcus explained. It survives through relationships between species. We need to combine the tardigrade's resilience with other extremophiles. Deep-sea bacteria that thrive under pressure, fungi that eat radiation, microbes that live in acid pools. The council chamber erupted in argument, but Elder Light's quiet voice cut through the chaos. You have one more attempt, Dr. Walker. After that, we must pursue the quantum mines plan to seal off the infected systems, even if it means sacrificing billions. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. Marcus and Anna worked without sleep, combining and recombining different organisms. Other scientists from Earth joined in, each bringing expertise about different extreme environment creatures. Finally, they stood ready for the second test. The new container held a complex mixture of modified organisms, each designed to support the others. If this fails, Captain Stone said quietly, the void will reach Earth in less than 2 months. Marcus nodded. His hand shook slightly as he initiated the sequence. Releasing organisms. Now. The mixture made contact with the void-corrupted metal. Again, the darkness pulsed and spread into the solution. But this time, something different happened. Where the organisms worked together, tiny spots of normal metal began to appear. The void fought back, trying to consume them, but the biological network held steady. Slowly, more and more of the metal returned to its natural state. It's working, Anna breathed. The recovery rate is slow, but it's stable. The council representatives murmured in disbelief. Admiral Gray smiled. "You did it," he said. "You found a way to fight corruption with life itself." But Marcus shook his head. "We're not done yet. This is just a small sample. We need to find a way to deploy this on a massive scale, and quickly. The void is still spreading across the Centauri system." Captain Stone stepped forward. "Then we better start planning the delivery mission. And I think I know just the crazy plan that might work." Through the station's windows, distant stars continued to vanish as the void crept closer. But for the first time since the crisis began, those stars didn't seem quite so doomed after all. The main laboratory of Mining Station Delta 7 hummed with activity. 3 weeks had passed since the successful small-scale test, and Dr. Marcus Walker hadn't left the station once. He stood now before a massive tank where their biological mixture churned, glowing with a faint blue light. "Production batch 47 is ready," Dr. Anna Smith announced, checking the readings. "Survival rate is holding at 98%. Marcus nodded, dark circles under his eyes but hope in his voice. "The deep-sea bacteria are reproducing faster than expected. The radiation-eating fungi have formed a perfect symbiosis with them." Captain Stone entered the lab, followed by Admiral Gray. The alien admiral's silver skin reflected the blue glow from the tanks as he studied the mixture. "Impressive," he said. "But will it be enough?" "We've solved the main problems," Marcus explained, pulling up a holographic display. "The tardigrades protect the other organisms from the void's initial corruption. The bacteria form living shields that give the fungi time to convert the corrupted matter back to normal. And the void can't adapt to it," Anna added, "because our mixture keeps evolving. It's not a single weapon, it's a living system." Captain Stone frowned at the latest reports. "The void has completely consumed the outer Centauri colonies. We're running out of time." Marcus walked to another tank, this one filled with a darker liquid. "That's why we developed this. Show them, Anna." Anna pressed a few buttons, and a small amount of void-corrupted material was introduced to the tank. The liquid immediately surrounded it, and within minutes, the corruption was gone. "The accelerated version," she explained. "By combining the hardiest traits of extremophiles with some engineered improvements, we've created something that can actively hunt down void corruption." Admiral Gray's eyes widened. "This is beyond anything we expected. But the delivery problem remains. How do we get enough of this mixture to the infected systems?" "We've been working on that too," Marcus said. He led them to a sealed room where several small metallic spheres floated in containers. "These are biological production pods. Once released into a void-infected area, they'll start producing more of the mixture using any available matter. They're like seeds," Anna explained. "Plant enough of them in the right places, and they'll grow into a cleanup system that can heal entire star systems." Captain Stone picked up one of the pods, studying it carefully. "How many do we have?" 300 so far," Marcus answered. "We're producing more every day." "But," he hesitated. "But what?" Admiral Gray asked. "But someone will have to deliver them," Anna finished quietly. "Right into the heart of void-corrupted space, and we don't know if any ship can survive that long in there." The room fell silent. Through the station's windows, they could see the distant edge of the void's advance, a darkness that ate the stars themselves. "The Council needs to see this," Admiral Gray said finally. "All of it." Within hours, the laboratory was connected to an emergency council session. As Marcus and Anna demonstrated their breakthrough, the chamber filled with cautious hope for the first time in months. Elder Light spoke after the presentation. "You've done the impossible, doctors. But the delivery challenge remains critical. Our fastest ships would take too long to reach all the infected areas. The void would consume them before they could finish the mission." Captain Stone stepped forward. "Then we'll need to try something that's never been done before. Something that only human ships might be able to pull off." "What do you mean?" the crystalline being asked. "We use the void's own corruption against it," Stone said grimly. We let our ships be partially corrupted, just enough to move through void space faster than normal ships. A suicide run, but one that might save everyone. Marcus and Anna exchanged shocked looks. Admiral Gray's skin paled to almost white. That's insane, someone in the council chamber whispered. That's human, Admiral Gray replied softly. And right now, that's exactly what we need. Captain Stone stood in the hangar of Mining Station Delta 7, looking at the fleet of 12 ships that would carry humanity's hope into the void. Each vessel had been specially modified with containers of the biological mixture and hundreds of production pods. Final checks complete, his first officer reported. All ships report ready. Stone nodded, his face grim. Every crew member on these ships had volunteered, knowing they might not return. The plan was simple but terrifying. They would allow their ships to be partially corrupted by the void, using its own nature to travel through it faster than normal spaceflight allowed. Dr. Marcus Walker and Dr. Anna Smith approached, carrying the latest data tablets. The void corruption will start affecting the ships immediately, Anna explained. You'll have maybe 30 minutes before it reaches critical levels. The biological pods need to be placed at these exact coordinates, Marcus added, showing a map of the infected systems. If we miss even one target zone, the cleanup network might fail. Admiral Gray's fleet of support ships hung in space nearby, ready to protect Earth if the mission failed. The Admiral himself had insisted on joining Stone's squad, despite the Council's objections. Last chance to back out, Stone said to his crews over the comm. Instead of replies, he got determined salutes from every ship's view screen. The launch countdown began. Dr. Walker grabbed Stone's arm. Remember, the moment you deploy the pods, get out of there. Don't wait to see if they work. The void entities. We've all seen the recordings, Stone said quietly. Strange shapes have been spotted moving in the corrupted space, things that used to be stars and planets and living beings, now transformed by the void into something else. The warning klaxon sounded. Final launch sequence. Good luck, Anna whispered, her eyes bright with unshed tears. The ships lifted off one by one, their hulls gleaming with protective coatings that would soon fail. As they cleared the station, Stone took one last look at Earth, shining blue and peaceful in the distance. All ships prepare for void entry, he ordered. Remember your training. The moment you feel the corruption affecting your thoughts, activate your emergency beacons and retreat. They approached the edge of normal space where the darkness waited. Stone took a deep breath. Begin Operation Restoration. All ships, follow me in. The fleet plunged into the void. Immediately, their sensors went dark. The ship's hulls began to crackle with strange energy. Through the view screen, Stone watched in horror and fascination as portions of his ship began to transform, turning black and fluid-like. First target zone reached. Someone called out. Deploying pods. One by one, ships reported successful deployments. But the void was taking its toll. 3 ships had already retreated, their crews unable to resist the corruption's mental effects any longer. Sir, his science officer shouted. Movement detected. The entities. Massive shapes moved in the darkness around them. They seemed to be made of corrupted space itself, twisted into impossible geometries. One of them brushed against a ship in the fleet, and it vanished instantly. Keep going, Stone ordered, even as his own hands shook at the controls. The void whispered in his mind, trying to convince him to embrace the corruption, to become one with it. Admiral Gray's voice crackled over the failing comm system. My sensors show the pods are activating. It's working. The biological network is starting to form. Stone could barely focus his eyes now. The corruption had spread to 60% of his ship. All ships, begin emergency withdrawal. Get out while you still can. Through the swirling darkness, he thought he saw spots of normal space beginning to appear. The first signs that their desperate plan might be working. But there was no time to celebrate. The void entities were closing in, and his ship's systems were failing. "Go," he shouted to his remaining fleet. "I'll hold them off." His last conscious thought, as he turned his failing ship to face the approaching entities, was a hope that somewhere, in the darkness behind him, humanity's gift to the galaxy was taking root, fighting back against the void one tiny light at a time. 6 months after Operation Restoration, Dr. Marcus Walker stood at the same podium where he had first presented his wild theory about using Earth's extremophiles against the void. But this time, the Galactic Council chamber was packed with representatives from every surviving civilization. The holographic display behind him showed something impossible: stars reappearing in previously corrupted space. The biological network had grown far beyond their expectations, spreading from system to system, slowly but steadily pushing back the darkness. "The recovery rate has exceeded our models," Marcus explained, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "The void entities are retreating from clean zones, and the corruption is being reversed in over 30 star systems." Dr. Anna Smith, now his official research partner, added, "The network has evolved even further, developing new ways to accelerate the cleaning process. It's not just surviving in void space, it's thriving." Elder Light's form glowed brighter than usual. "And what of the cost?" they asked softly. "How many ships did we lose?" Admiral Gray stepped forward, his silver skin bearing new scars from the mission. 8 ships never returned from void space, he reported, including Captain Stone's vessel. The chamber fell silent in remembrance. Then, a commotion at the entrance drew everyone's attention. A figure in a damaged spacesuit limped into the room, supported by 2 medical officers. "Sorry I'm late," Captain Stone said, his voice weak but clear. "It's a long walk back from the void." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Marcus and Anna rushed to him, followed by Admiral Gray. "How?" Marcus asked, hardly believing his eyes. "We saw your ship vanish into the corruption." Stone managed a tired smile. "Turns out your biological network does more than clean void corruption. When my ship was about to be completely consumed, some of the transformed matter responded to me. Like it recognized I was human, connected to its Earth origins. It protected me until one of the recovery teams found my emergency pod." The crystalline being, who had once dismissed Earth's solution, approached Stone. "You and your crew's sacrifice made this possible. The Council was wrong about humanity. We saw your limited technology and assumed you had nothing to offer. We didn't understand that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most powerful." Elder Light raised all 4 arms for attention. "The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision. Earth will be granted full membership, with all rights and privileges. Furthermore, we propose the establishment of a new institute dedicated to combining the wisdom of all our civilizations with humanity's unique perspective." Marcus and Anna exchanged surprised looks as Elder Light continued. "Dr. Walker, Dr. Smith, and Captain Stone will lead this new Resilience Institute. Your first task will be to ensure we're better prepared for future threats, drawing on both advanced technology and natural solutions." "There's something else," Anna said, stepping forward. "The biological network isn't just cleaning the void corruption. It's teaching us something. The void entities, they weren't our enemies. They were part of a natural cycle we didn't understand. Now the network is helping them transform back into their original forms." Stone nodded. "Stars that were consumed are being reborn. The network isn't destroying the void. It's helping restore balance." Admiral Gray laughed softly. "Once again, humans show us a new way of thinking. Instead of fighting the darkness, you found a way to help it remember the light." As if to emphasize his words, the holographic display showed another star system returning to normal, its light joining countless others in the restored sky. Marcus looked around the chamber, at the faces of beings from across the galaxy, all united in this moment of hope. "We still have a lot of work to do," he said. "But together, we can face whatever comes next." "Together," Elder Light agreed. with humanity to remind us that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in power or technology, but in understanding, adaptation, and the courage to try what others think impossible. Outside the council chamber, the stars shone brighter than ever, each one a testament to humanity's gift to the galaxy, the proof that even in the darkest void, life finds a way to bring back the light.